Hey everybody, and welcome back to another severe storm thermal weather forecast. In this forecast, we have a lot of winter to talk about, so let's get right into it. We're going to be taking a look at our precipitation trends today, and you can see here a little bit of a clipper system trying to develop across portions of Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri with some briefly light to moderate snow, probably about an inch or two. And then up here across portions of the Northeast, still dealing with that remnants of the New Year's storm system that blew through the Great Lakes. So it's now producing kind of sporadic blizzard conditions, I guess you could say, across portions of New England back up into portions of Canada. Meanwhile, over here we have a atmospheric river, soon to be our pretty potent snowstorm we're going to be talking about here in this forecast. So let's get right into it. Without further ado, let's put this into motion here. Taking this all the way past tomorrow into the weekend. Tomorrow should be a quiet day overall, except for the lake effect over here. Should be pretty active up here, if I were to say, across portions of the Great Lakes. But otherwise, pretty quiet tomorrow. It's Saturday when we start to get active again. All right, there's that atmospheric river turning into a big storm across portions of the northern plains, a strip of snow from Montana back into portions of South Dakota, maybe some mixing occurring across portions of Kansas as that low pressure system begins to fire off. And then as the two pieces of energy merge, yep, you guessed it, we get a massive blockbuster snowstorm across the United States. All right, so I'm going to put it out in basically precipitation type. All right, so here's your low pressure system on this model. You're probably going to have a cold front dragging or doing something like that. You're probably going to have a warm front just ahead of that. And when that warm front reaches the area of like freezing temperatures at the surface, this is when you get into the problems with freezing rain and the potential for sleet. All right, we are going to be dealing with likely an ice situation as we head into portions of Kentucky, as well as Missouri, and even Illinois, southern Illinois to be exact, as we head into Sunday afternoon. And of course, can't forget the heavy snow part of this. It is going to be very heavy snow in anywhere where I circled this, and it's also going to be windy, so we could also be talking about some sporadic blowing snow, maybe even some sporadic blizzard-like conditions. So I don't think we're going to see full-on blizzard conditions, but we could definitely see conditions getting close to that in some areas. So something to keep an eye on here. And then as we take this in towards Monday, January 6th, the track of this low is very crucial. All right, your jet stream is, according to this model, doing something like this. So the low's taking a ride on that. All right, if this jet stream is just nudged a bit further north, that would put areas like North Ohio, North Pennsylvania, southern Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Illinois, and even southern Wisconsin at risk for a very heavy snowstorm. However, that model run here is not showing that. All right, so we need to watch the track of this low because it'll be very crucial where that sets up, because where that sets up could be very bad snowstorm. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. As we head in towards the latter part of the day on Monday, still some snow breaking out across portions of the Great Lakes back into portions of the Northeast. I do think we will get some healthy accumulations with this backside snow, especially in those areas that get some heavier totals there. But the ice, I think, is going to be probably the most big problem with this, but don't obviously disregard the heavy snow with that as well. Then as we take this in towards middle to late next week, things get quite interesting. All right, the jet stream really starts to take a dive, all right, down here in the portions of the SoCal region. It gets picked up by an area of low pressure. It picks up an area of low pressure. Snowstorm breaks out in Texas and New Mexico. All right, that's not often you hear a snowstorm breaking out in Texas. All right, so that is something to keep an eye on here. Granted, I don't think it's going to be as intense as the GFS is hyping this, But I definitely think we could potentially have a snowstorm or an ice event across portions of the south here, especially if we get a low pressure system riding a 540 millibar jet as far south as Texas. I definitely think that's a good possibility. We could see some sleet here, and we could see some heavy snow on the northernmost part. So don't get your hopes up yet if you guys live in Texas, but I would definitely keep an eye on it. Because that looks like a pretty intense storm if that were to happen here. And then as we take this in towards next weekend, I know there's a lot of folks probably watching from North Carolina, South Carolina, and areas like that. Do not get your hopes up about this at all, all right? The models are showing this big winter storm across portions of Tennessee and North Carolina, and a big ice event from Georgia back up into portions of South Carolina. Don't get your hopes up that this will happen. All right, the pattern definitely favors it. All right, your 540 line is way down here, picks up the storm system and all that. But like I said, do not get your hopes up because this could easily shift in the next model run. All right, the last model run did not have this, so that's why I definitely think there's confidence that it'll either shift north or maybe in unlikely cases shifts more south. But I definitely think you guys do have a little bit of a shot across portions of Tennessee and North Carolina, maybe to get a quick hit of snow according to this model run, but not anything really too impactful. But we'll continue to, of course, to keep you updated here if the unexpected happens here. Then as we head in towards January 13th, I think this is early next week here, Clipper system across portions of the Great Lakes region. Obviously, this could change where these storm systems track and how they go, what impacts they bring, how intense they are, is very uncertain, guys. All right, but I'm going to give you a really brief description right now. It is certain that we're going to get Arctic cold in the United States, even as far south as Georgia and Florida. The most uncertain thing is where the storm system's set up, and I know that's what everyone wants to know, but I'm sorry, that's the most uncertain thing we have right now. So right now we're just going to take things that we see on here as a grain of salt, unless it is under a week out, which that snowstorm that we talked about at the beginning, fine. But this storm, like the storm in Texas and stuff, I definitely think you guys should not get your hopes up and should definitely 100% take that as a grain of salt. And over here in the Carolinas, don't think that's going to happen. Do not get your hopes up one bit. And take this definitely as a grain of salt. And we said that Arctic cold is the most certain thing that's going to happen. So let's get right into it here. We're taking a look at our temperature departures from average here. You can see there's that cold air just lining up to pour into the United States as that stratospheric warming event is really getting going across the Greenland area as well as other portions of Canada. Watch as this just rives into the United States as we head from Sunday into Monday. All right, and I forgot to mention that's probably going to cause a severe weather outbreak across portions of Dixie Alley. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. And then notice here as we head in towards Monday that we have a complete cold blast entering the United States. All right, just everywhere. Bouts of cold air. All right, you can basically tell where your jet stream is. It's right here, and it's very far south. All right, that's why I said we could get those big that's certain that we'll get those big Arctic blasts, but uncertain where those storm systems track. Taking this in towards mid next week here, we just have a bundle of cold air across all of the vast majority of the central as well as the eastern United States. Even as far south as the Caribbean, we are dealing with below average temperatures. All right, now that does not obviously mean 30-degree temperatures down here, but but that could mean maybe 70s, 60s even down here. That's very cold for you this time of year. So definitely something to keep an eye on if you live down there. But as we take this in towards late week, in towards that next weekend, as well as in towards early next week, the cold will just keep on going here as that stratospheric warming allows the polar vortex to break apart here and send lobes of energy down south. All right. By January 15th, January 15th, I think the entirety of the United States is going to be dealing with a freeze. All right. And yes, that might not mean 32 degrees down here across portions of southern Florida, but areas like northern Florida and northward, you guys might be just shy or below of 32 degrees. So that counts as a freeze for you. So we need to keep a close eye on that. Then taking this to the end of the model run, my friends, I mean, it appears that this cold pattern will stick around. There is a little sign of some warming maybe by the end of the month, but I'm still waiting on to see that. The thing that is certain right now is that we get much colder in towards the first couple weeks of this month. So definitely be ready to bundle up if you live anywhere in these areas. And we have to talk about how the SPC pulled the trigger and issued a day 4 severe weather threat for the Arklatex as well as the Arklamis regions, including a already 15% chance of severe weather within 25 miles of a given location. And that's obviously not actually 15%. That's probably rounded up to like 60% or something like that if you were to round it up in real term here. If you're a real percentage person, that would probably be your value here. But definitely a concern that we'll have some severe weather across the Arklamis region and the Arklatex region as we head in towards the time of that snowstorm potential. And so let's without further ado take a look at our severe weather ingredients across the United States here. And we're first going to be taking a look at our low-level jet energy across the United States. Look at that big surge in energy as we head in towards Sunday evening across the Arklamis, as well as even into Alabama. We could start seeing some severe weather start to approach. So definitely something we're going to be keeping an eye on there. But, I mean, in these yellow areas and these reddish areas, you're at the least going to have a 50-knot low-level jet. And when you get into these yellows, you could have sporadic 65 to 70-knot winds aloft. But with instability, which we'll take a look at here in just a second, we will likely have a lot of mixing down to the surface. So definitely something we're going to keep in mind as we head in towards that time frame for especially damaging winds. And you can see there is more than enough instability to mix some of that wind down to the surface. All right, you don't need a lot to get things going this time of year. As long as you have deep moisture advection, the severe weather threat should be in check across the Gulf Coast as we head in towards that time frame with the damaging wind threat, as well as the potential for some linear maybe some circulations embedded in that squall line with the strong low-level jet we have, with the potential for a perpendicular direction ahead of the front to produce some supercells, and maybe some QLCS tornadoes along the squall line. And friends, the Climate Prediction Center agrees 100% that there is going to be a pretty strong Arctic blast across much of the eastern United States, even in Florida like we were discussing earlier, and even into portions of Cuba. And then over here, meanwhile, I forgot to discuss this, but we could be a bit warmer over here. Not going to be super warm, but there's definitely confidence that there'll be at least slightly above average temperatures over here with the big Arctic blast potential as the jet stream lifts far north over here and pushes it down over here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Make sure you hit the like button down below and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any important weather updates. Have a great rest of your night, everybody.